We are going to transition to Representative Frazier's bill, House File 2090. And while Representative Frazier is making his way to the testifier table, I will move that House File 2090 be laid over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair.
Okay.
Representative Frazier, welcome to the Higher Education Committee. We're grateful to have you here. Please present to us House File 2090.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Co-Chair, and members. Thank you for having me here today. Always hate to follow up behind Chair Mariani, but since this is supportive of the great work that he's been doing with NEEP and the folks that we have here to testify, it is an honor to do so in this moment. House File 290 is a bill that would allow Minnesota to take bold steps to make higher education more affordable, accessible, and equitable for all students. With rising costs and persistent barriers to college completion, these initiatives aim to expand financial aid, increase student support, and secure the long-term stability of the state's higher education system. To ensure that financial aid keeps pace with the real cost of living, the state grant living allowance will increase from 115% to 121% of the federal poverty guideline, helping students cover essential expenses. Additionally, the State Grant Plus Scholarship Program will provide eligible students with an extra 25% of their state grant award, reducing financial strain and making college more attainable. Beyond tuition assistance, the bill also focuses on boosting college access and completion with FAFSA completion grants that will support nonprofits in increasing the number of high school seniors applying for financial aid, ensuring more students receive the assistance they qualify for. At the same time, competitive grants for Pell-eligible student retention and graduation will help institutions develop targeted strategies to support low-income students, keeping them on the path to earning a degree. Recognizing the diverse needs of Minnesota's student population, funding will be allocated for multilingual and culturally relevant educational materials, ensuring that non-English speakers and underrepresented communities have the tools they need to navigate college and financial aid systems. Additionally, continued support for the Minnesota Education Equity Partnership, NEEP, will further advance policies that promote racial and educational equity across the state. To secure the long-term stability of higher education funding, the Minnesota Office of Higher Education will establish a working group on higher education financial stability, tasked with developing sustainable funding strategies. Another working group will review and update Minnesota's higher education attainment goals, ensuring that the state remains aligned with workforce demands and economic growth. Together, these initiatives remove financial barriers, support student success, and strengthen the future of higher education in Minnesota. By investing in students today, the state is laying the foundation for a stronger, more prosperous future for all Minnesotans. And with that, Mr. Chair and Madam Co-Chair, I will allow for my testifiers to testify.
Representative Frazier, thank you for that thoughtful presentation on House File 2090. If you would please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you so much, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Tammy Williams, and I'm here on behalf of NEEP. I work as the Director of College Race Equity, and I'm here to express our support for including the Higher Education Attainment Goal Working Group in this bill. So as you heard from Carlos Mariani, for over 20 years, NEEP has been actively involved in higher education initiatives focusing on enrollment, retention, and financial aid reform. We have organized regional and state convenings, consistently hearing the need for increased funding. Our support for the North Star Act underscores our dedication to these efforts. NEEP established CREAC, which is the College Race Equity Advocacy Advisory Council. This is a statewide multiracial advocacy group dedicated to advancing race equity within Minnesota's higher education systems. CREAC comprises of members from OHE, Office of Higher Education, MnState, Minnesota Private Colleges, leaders from various colleges and universities, and several student voices. Notably, CREAC members contributed to developing some of the provisions in this bill. Minnesota's economic success hinges on a skilled and educated workforce. As our state experiences demographic shifts and growing workforce shortages, ensuring that more Minnesotans can access and complete post-secondary education becomes not just an educational priority, but an economic necessity. This working group has the potential to drive economic growth, reduce dependence on social services, and expand opportunities for all Minnesotans by strengthening our attainment goals and aligning them with the industry needs. By bringing together stakeholders from higher ed, the private sector, and community organizations, this working group aims to ensure that our education system prepares students for the jobs of tomorrow. When more students complete college and enter the workforce ready to succeed, Minnesota benefits from a stronger economy, higher earnings, and a greater, more competitive environment and sustainability. At MNEEP, we firmly believe that when students succeed, Minnesotans succeed. Supporting this provision is a wise investment in our state's future. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions that you all may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Williams. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Leotawa Dr. John Peterson, and I work with the Minnesota Education Equity Partnership, MNEEP, as a Senior Fellow and Director of Policy. I'm here today to testify in support of House File 2090. Investing in higher education in ways that better support students and systems is a moral and economic imperative for our state. Despite the current fiscal realities that we are facing, it is critically important that we continue to invest in higher ed if we are to achieve the academic and economic goals we have set for our students and for our communities. Over the past 6 years, I've had the privilege of being in relation in community with students, faculty, institutional partners, and staff working at the Minnesota Office of Higher Education and P20 Educational Partnership. And while we may not agree on everything, we do agree on one thing. Our students matter and higher education systems matter. Both matter. HF2090 seeks to advance provisions in support of our collective agreement about what matters in higher education, whether it be providing additional financial resources directly to students via the state grant, or offering competitive grants designed to help systems and institutions increase student retention and college completion. The purpose of this bill is singular: to uplift the importance of higher education in Minnesota and reduce disparities in college completion with a credential or a degree based on race. Supporting this bill through public discourse about its provisions will serve to increase our consciousness, conviction, and commitment, what we at MNEEP call the 3 C's of change, to do better so that each of us may be better. The health of our state depends upon a higher education ecosystem that can adapt to ever-shifting political, economic, and social realities by tapping into the brilliance of our students. Representative Frazier's bill does that. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, Madam Co-Chair, and committee members for providing space to be heard and seen in support of our students, systems, and state. Faftai Manuelo Aso, and I'd be happy to address any questions you may have about the bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative Frazier, I understand you have one further testifier today. If they would please proceed to the table, and if you would please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. Welcome.
Mr. Chair and members, my name is Jama Jigo. Thank you all for the opportunity to testify today. I am a student at Augsburg University, double majoring in international relations and communications. I am also a Capital Pathways intern who is working with NAMI Minnesota during this legislative session. However, I am here today as a student supporting House File 2090 and its provisions on increases to living and miscellaneous expenses, or LME, and the creation of the State Grant Plus Scholarship. Students like myself enjoy benefits of private higher education in Minnesota, including smaller class sizes, specialized undergraduate programs, and particularly at Augsburg, I receive a liberal arts education committed to intentional diversity. Being a student at a private college means that I am able to receive the state grant, which has filled in a large gap between my tuition, meal plans, books, and other costs associated with being a full-time college student. However, I am not a recipient of the North Star Promise Scholarship, and with the current state grant shortfall we all face, I have growing concerns about being able to afford school. When graduating from Anoka High School in 2021, attending school in an environment that promoted unique perspectives and allowed me to discover my vocation in an urban setting was necessary, as I am a commuter student who travels from the northwest suburbs of Ramsey to Minneapolis for my classes. Increasing living expenses that is taken into account in the state grant formula ultimately raises the amount of financial aid I receive that can be used for expenses outside of tuition, which includes cost of commuting. Not having a large financial aid balance has created time for extracurricular involvement and has alleviated my concerns about finances, allowing academics to be a priority in my life. Attending a nonprofit private university has also opened doors for my involvement in the Minnesota Association of Private College Students, or MAPSIS, and my current testimony today, along with advocating for other issues affecting students attending private colleges. Education is a paramount belief for all members of this committee, but for me personally, it has written my story. As a first-generation student, my parents immigrated to Minnesota from South Sudan in 1998 in hopes of a better life. And the chance of receiving a quality education is one of the many reasons why they left the war-torn country as refugees. Once my parents both became U.S. citizens, my father then enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2008, partly to afford my siblings and I the opportunity to attend higher education with lowered costs due to the GI Bill and other financial assistance that is offered to active duty service members and their dependent family members. Additionally, I have applied to and received an array of scholarships and grants before and during my studies at Augsburg to compensate for not receiving aid from programs similar to the North Star Promise. As much gratitude as I have for all these opportunities, I wish for these funds to be shared amongst my classmates, not only at Augsburg, but across this whole state. This is where the Minnesota State Grant and now the State Grant Plus Scholarship will afford and empower students like myself, who historically are not seen in certain institutions and systems, the chance to attend college and fulfill their destiny to be part of the future generation who could be responsible for advocating and making decisions for Minnesotans. Because I am set to graduate this upcoming fall, I worry that I might not have enough financial assistance to finish my undergraduate degree. Between finishing my credits, working as a direct support professional full-time, interning with NAMI Minnesota, and having responsibilities within my family, the creation of the State Grant Plus Scholarship, along with the other proposals brought to this committee by the Minnesota Education Equity Partnership and Representative Frazier, will bring financial fairness and uphold the priority of higher education that this legislature has made. And for that, please support House File 2090, and I thank you all for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We will now move on to member discussion of House File 2090. Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Chair, and Representative Frazier, thank you for bringing the bill. I have a question, though, about the appropriations. They're left blank. Do you have some estimate, guess, at some target that you're looking at?
Representative Frazier.
I'm gonna defer. We left it blank, obviously understanding the budget situation that we have now, and we're continuing to have conversations around this. I'm gonna let Mr. Peterson comment if he'd like.
Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the one-time appropriations, I think any amount would be helpful. Honestly, the ongoing, we recognize it's going to be incredibly challenging during the current fiscal situation that the state is facing. We were hoping that we could get these ideas out on the table so that perhaps this body could have some conversation about the concept, the idea, with the knowledge that it is going to be tough to invest any more dollars than what have already been committed, or when you get to target, you'll have a better idea of what's going on with the fiscal side of things. But the one-time appropriations would be helpful, whether it's the support to the nonprofits to help out with the FAFSA grant completion, whether it's providing some competitive grants to the Office of Higher Education for institutions to help with college completion and retention. Those would be one-time appropriations, so thank you.
Anything further, Representative Novotny?
One more follow-up, but
Representative Novotny.
thank you, Chair Wolgamott. Representative Frazier or Dr. Peterson, do you have a per pupil a target number that you're looking for, or a number of students that you want to help? I mean, you had to have some, there's
Right.
some dream number. If you had in a perfect world, what would it be?
Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, which specific provision are you referencing?
Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Chair Wolgamott. You've got two lines, Section 10, the appropriation for the state grant scholarship. And that continues on to page 8.1. Those are blank appropriations. So in a perfect world, what would that number be?
Dr. Peterson.
Mr. Chair, in a perfect world, I would say $50,000 for the one-time appropriations would help It's a small, I mean, I don't want to say it's a small amount, but when we look at the state of English learners in K-12, for example, they are the lowest performing students in the state. They fall 59 complete points on the MCAs behind their white counterparts. What we've heard feedback on is that some families struggle to find the way to understand some of the information that's on the Office of Higher Ed's website. So even $50,000 would be supportive of supporting the office to create more multilingual, culturally responsive resources on the website for families to access, especially in the case of multilingual learners and English learners. When it comes down to the state grant appropriation, I just want to find my notes here. This is what we'd be looking at. How much would the state grants plus scholarship be? The following is based on average state grants for the fiscal year 2024. And we could extrapolate off this information, I think, pretty easily based on the number of students that receive Pell Grants. At the University of Minnesota, the average state grant is about $6,100. A student with an average state grant would get a state grant plus scholarship of roughly $1,500. At nonprofit institutions, the average state grant is about $5,800. A student with an average state grant would get a state grant plus scholarship of $1,450. At Minnesota State Universities, the average state grant is about $3,200. A student with an average state grant would get a state grant plus scholarship of about $800. And then finally, at Minnesota State Colleges, the average state grant is about $1,400. A student with an average state grant would get a state grant plus scholarship of about $350. You'll also notice in the bill that the commissioner can raise or lower the 25% match level if there is a surplus or shortfall in the appropriation. And there's also a requirement to report back the progress of the program recipients. The idea is that it creates a little more parity for students who do not qualify for the North Star Scholarship Program. I know that there was a lot of discussion about the $80,000 threshold. And so it proportionally is a much smaller amount of investment, but serves students that currently lie outside of that eligibility for North Star.
Thank you, Chair.
We are going back to member discussion for House File 2090. Chair Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Representative Frazier, you've increased the LME, and do you happen to know, we don't have a fiscal note, so that's a significant change. Do you happen to know about what that would cost?
Representative Frazier.
We do not have the numbers yet, Chair Rarick. But again, one of the main reasons that I wanted to carry this bill, and I'm usually not okay with not putting numbers in, but I understand we're in a unique situation this session, looking at what we're facing in the outlying years around budget difficulties. But I do think this is after having conversations with constituents, students in my district that are impacted by this, it was very critical, important for me to be able to bring this conversation to the legislators so that we're thinking about it to make sure we can provide resources for those students in the future.
Anything further, Representative Rarick?
Thank you, yes.
Chair Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the governor's proposal, he actually proposed to decrease the LME to 110%. You're proposing to increase it to 121%. So in my calculations, it's about $36 million more cost from the state grant program. And the state grant program already is $232 million short. If you kind of hold people harmless all the way through this whole process, we've had a massive hit. So just because you're not a part of this committee, that is basically the equivalent of one entire year's worth of state grant funding. So that's how much the hole is. So this would be creating a bigger hole of $36 million, not to even mention, that's just the LME. So then all of the other things would be creating an even bigger hole. And since we don't have a fiscal note, I was just hoping that maybe you would know some of that, or, be sensitive to some of that, because we're in a tough place. Even though we have about a $4 billion biennial budget, $232 million is a big hole in the state grant program. So this is making that hole much, much bigger. So I just thought I'd get that out there and see if he understood some of that. And we don't have a fiscal note, so we can't, my numbers are pretty good, but you never know. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. It's hard to know. I'm usually pretty accurate, but we'll see. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Frazier, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Co-Chair. No, thank you for bringing it up. I am very sensitive to the situation and the particulars that we're in now with the budget. Very aware of the deficit that the state grant program is facing now. But again, my main purpose for this is that it is something that needs to be discussed. When I've had conversations with the students that are being impacted that are concerned that they may not have that they may not be held harmless going into their next semesters for next year. Those are tough conversations to have, and I did promise them that I would make sure that I did my part in having a conversation to see what we could do as best we can to try to ease some of the anxiety that they're facing right now.
Further member discussion on House File 2090. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm actually asking this question for Representative Robbins, who had to go see a constituent. But she was asking, would the practicality of the situation be better off to expand the North Star Promise Program rather than maybe this approach?
Representative Frazier.
I don't have an answer for that. We haven't looked at that as a possibility, but I will say, I got to start texting members during committee meetings if we can get questions asked in real time like that. I like that.
Anything further, Representative Scott? Further discussion, Representative Liebling.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Representative Frazier and to all of the testifiers. I don't really have a particular question. Knowing the financial situation that we have, I'm really glad that you brought this bill forward because, I'm just sitting here thinking about, and thank you especially to the student who came and testified and told her story about how important this is. Because it isn't just a private good, obviously. It's great for a person who can go and get an education and move up the economic ladder and all that, but it's also a public good.
Yeah.
And when we think about the disparities that we have, that's just wasted talent that we all really need in the state, and we need everybody's talent to be developed as absolutely as far as they can go. In a lot of countries, higher education's free. Obviously, we're not there, but it just, it's kind of a little bit heartbreaking to even really think about it because, people want to say, well, we're spending so much money in Minnesota, but we have so much unmet need and things that are not handouts to anybody, but are really investments in public good. And I know, Representative Fraser, I know you are totally right there, but I just wanted to say that because in this committee, obviously, we all care a lot about this and we know we're not going to be able to meet the need. And this just really is making me sit here and think about how we're not going to really meet the need. And honestly, this kind of issue is one of the reasons I even ran for office in the first place a long time ago. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Liebling. Further discussion to House File 2090. Recognize Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair Liebling said a lot of what I wanted to say, Representative Frazier. So Corona class always out here doing the right thing, and I appreciate that a lot. We know that not being able to attain higher education holds so many people back from things that they do not need to be held back from. I am living proof of that, and I can't wait to see more people come and sit in seats like ours when they get opportunities like this. And so being able to stand in the light and do the right thing when we know better and have a chance to do better is exactly why I ran for office. So thank you for bringing this forward, and thank you for always doing the hard work. I appreciate you.
Is there any further member discussion? Seeing none, Representative Frazier, closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for a lively discussion and for good questions. I appreciate those. Again, acknowledging the budget situation we're in, the uniqueness of this session, I'll just say, I'll go back to an investment in our educational system so that all Minnesotans can have access to it is an investment in our state as a whole. I attended the entirety of my higher educational attainment here in the state of Minnesota, public and private. So I absolutely personally understand the financial burden of being able to complete those degrees. And I want to, and I believe we all do, as elected officials, as arbiters of our finances, we want to make sure that all of Minnesotans have access to our higher education system because it makes the state better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Frazier. I renew my motion that House File 2090 be laid over for possible inclusion in the Higher Education Finance Omnibus Bill. The bill is laid over.